on a day-to-day basis, but they don't know, like, when you go through all these menus, like, what do they do, and how do you get the radio to do what you really want it to do? That's what this video series is about, and there's a whole playlist. I want to invite you, after you finish this video, to check out that playlist. It's got a whole bunch of information about EdgeTX, and will make you a whole lot smarter about how to use your radio. That's linked in the video description below when you get to the end of this one. And we're going to start with a black and white screen radio here. This is the Radio Master Boxer Crush, and the reason we're doing that is because if I press the sys key, that's going to take me to the tools menu. Do this with me. Press the sys key and then page 1 time to the SD card contents and 2 times to the radio setup screen. That's where these options are. And on the color screen radio, they're sort of buried in sub-menus, whereas on this radio, they're all on a list, and I think that's going to make it easier to kind of go down them and highlight the ones we want to pay attention to. I will, of course, be following along in a color screen radio as well for people who have them. And at the very top of the list, we've got the date and time. And if you want to, you can manually set that date and time. And in my experience, it tends to drift and doesn't stay that accurate for very long. And there isn't really any easy way or even a medium hard way to have the radio automatically set the date and time. There is a way to set it up so that if you have a GPS on your drone, the flight controller can get the date and time from the GPS system and then communicate that back to the radio over telemetry, and the radio can set its time and date. And it's kind of a hassle, and it doesn't always work, and I'm never really bothered with it. So set this if you want to. Don't set it if you don't want to. Most of the time it doesn't matter. The only time when it might matter is if you've got the radio doing any kind of logging, so the radio can store logs of various types to its SD card. If you've got the radio doing logging, then having accurate time and date could obviously help you find the logs that you're looking for. And in that case, well, you might just want to manually set it before you get to the flight field. I just wish there was a better way to handle this, and it just doesn't seem like there is. Here on a color touchscreen radio, I can long press the sys key, and that will take me right to the radio setup screen. I actually want to make a distinction there, because if I short press the sys key, it takes me right to the tools menu, and of course I could just then page over or tap to get to the radio setup screen, but that long press on the sys key gets you there just that little bit faster. And as you can see here, I've got the date and the time just like before. We're not going to do this for every option. A lot of times with just a little bit of creativity, you'll find the option when it's there, but I just want to show you the options are there and how to get to them on both the black and white and the color touchscreen radios. And as I said in the previous video, if your radio doesn't have a sys key, then you get there by long pressing the menu key and then paging to the desired screen. The battery range setting controls this display. I'm just going to press the return key to back out and go back to the main screen. It controls this setting here. Here we've got the battery readout, and the battery range controls when that battery appears to be full and when it appears to be empty. If you take a look here, I'm at 7.7 volts right now, and if I long press the sys key and page to the radio setup, if I then go down and change the bat range to be 6.4 to 7.7, when we go back to the main screen, we should see that that battery now reads fully charged. I'll press the sys key here, and again, we can put that back the way it was. The default value is perfectly fine. 8.2 volts. The radio is running off a 2-cell battery, so fully charged is 4.2 times 2, which is 8.4. So they've got the default battery range maxing out at 8.2. So it shows fully charged from 8.4 down to 8.2, and then it begins to empty out. The minimum is going to be 6.0 volts for a 2-cell LiPo, but most of the time you're not going to run it down to...
This is Tarun with Just Tarun Gaming, and welcome to my stream.
The radio will just turn
What's
off.
going on today?
In fact, some of these radios don't actually like to go below 3.4 or 3.5 volts.
Not doing too much. Watching Bardwell doing his mumbo jumbo.
But I don't at this time. So the battery range at the bottom, when it shows completely empty and starts flashing, by default it's 6.4. If you knew that you had a battery that could go much, much lower than that, like 18650 lithium-ion cells can go down to 2.5 volts, then you theoretically could change the bottom of that battery range to reflect that you were going to discharge your battery further. However, number one, you usually get plenty of flight time off these batteries, even if you run them down to just 3.2 or so volts. Number two, remember some radios will not operate below 3.4 or 3.3 something volts. I don't know the exact cutoff, and so you'll get yourself into trouble even though the battery's just fine. And number three, it's fine. I'm just going to leave it.
Stay.
If you really wanted to, that's what it does. On a color touchscreen radio, this setting does not appear to be in the radio setup screen. Instead, it is in the hardware screen, which is right here. It's the exact same setting, battery meter range from a low to a
Lock
high value, it's set it exactly the same way. In addition, there is a battery calibration option that lets you adjust the voltage of the radio if the radio is misreading the battery's voltage, if it's reading high or low. You can compare it against a multimeter and adjust it here using battery calibration. On the black and white screen radio, we can also access the hardware screen. We can
So what am I up to today?
the hardware screen.
Just playing the game as usual.
Here it is down at the bottom, battery calibration, and we can calibrate that up and down.
I got some music in the background from YouTube. I don't know what it is exactly, but
Are present, they're just
we'll see if I get some copyright strikes again.
Next,
Fun
we come
times.
to the sound options, which controls when the radio will beep or buzz or otherwise play a sound. The default mode is all, and that means that anytime you move the jog wheel or click the jog wheel, it will beep. Personally, I find this a little bit annoying. Just like all the time, I don't need it.
Alright, I was not far from the dig site.
No key, in which case it will not beep when you move the jog wheel, but it will still play any sound files that you have the radio play via your own configuration, and will play alerts and alarms such as low voltage, low battery, low RSSI, and so forth. The third option is alarm, in which case it will only play alarms and will not play any other sounds, including special functions that you set up. And then finally there is quiet, in which case the radio will not play any sound whatsoever. You know, I say that, but I think there is one sound that it will still play. Let's find out. Is that a startup sound? Oh, no, it won't. See here, it says alarm
There we go.
disabled. It's warning us.
So let's see, dig 3.
Again, if you're flying,
I finished dig 2, it looks like, which is good.
your battery voltage is
Don't think I started on the way to 3 though.
well, they want you to know that you're not.
Did I collect everything? Collected. Yes.
I like no keys. If we continue down, we've got a master volume, and that's the volume for the radio as a whole.
So pretty much go to the second site, fish for a bonefish, then go to the fourth site.
Here for beat length that can make it longer or shorter. We can just try that out. Oh God, that's obnoxious.
That's eventual.
Shorter, is it better? It's marginally better, but still pretty annoying. I'm just gonna send it back to no keys.
And I feel like that's gonna be down the line too.
Available in the sound.
Same with the dong. Okay.
You can see they're all here. We've got two more volume settings here, the wave volume and
Let's do something
volume. So the radio can play wave files off the SD card.
inventory wise.
You turn the radio on and it says, welcome to HTX.
So I have no money.
Set the radio up so that when you flip a switch, it says the flight mode. It says angle mode, GPS
I
rescue.
still have parts of my freighter to sell.
Have arbitrary wave files that you create and record and play back under
No.
conditions that you determine. We'll talk about that more later in the series. That's the wave file volume that you see here, and it can be adjusted separately. As
I
well as
wonder what those Gravitino balls will go
the
for.
radio also has a function where it can play background music, like if you didn't have your phone to play
Where's my ship though?
music on the
Usually it would be right next to where you are.
speaker or some radios you can hear.
Oh well.
I don't know if this is a feature that people use, but the background volume is working just there. The next section is the
There we go.
audio section, and we're not going to talk about that very much. I just want you to know it exists, and you can refer to the product documentation if it's relevant to you. The vario refers to a variometer, which is a thing that tells you how fast your model is climbing and descending. It's a thing used by glider pilots. If you're not a glider pilot, it's probably on the touchscreen radio, you can see there is a variometer section right here, and it has the exact same settings. That's all we'll say about that. In addition to beeping and playing wave files, the radio also has the ability to do haptic feedback and vibration. And the haptic section here controls that. So if I want there to be some feedback when I'm using the jog wheel, but I don't want beeping, I can change the haptic to all and
I've done a small modification to my radio. I've changed the startup sound to a Windows startup sound. Just not a fan of. Welcome to HTX.
you might consider doing something like haptic for alarms. Audible for no key, so that if there's an alarm, in addition to the audible feedback, it'll also give the noise more loud. You can hear it. You can hear the volume turned down. Well, then that will tell you that there was a problem and draw your attention to the radio. The alarm section is how the radio tells you about some conditions that could cause the radio to not working correctly. The first one that we see here is the battery low alarm, which is when the battery gets below this level.
Oh,
the
that
radio
ammo was good. 2.4%.
saying battery low.
Get 5,000 off of that.
Set that wherever you want it to be. It's common to set it to be the same as the bottom
Sell that plasma.
So when the battery is empty, the battery low alarm starts going off.
Tritium.
Side based on the
I
battery
could sell that, but it doesn't seem like it's worth that much.
dead of the inactivity alarm. Well, you ever had left your radio powered on and it says inactivity alarm? Inactivity alert. Right? That's how
I just don't like stack venom. Might as well get rid of that.
we have memory low. Memory
Right.
low is an alarm that you'll see when the radio's ringing. How that happen? The answer is usually a Lewis script. So Lewis scripts are little programs that you can put on the SD card and they run in the background in the foreground. And if the Lewis script is taking up too much memory, the radio can run out of memory and may stop working. It won't. It'll keep
Again.
hopefully everything will be fine, but you'll get a warning that
There we go.
you definitely
Gravity balls. Minus 3.8.
definitely want to know. Sound off gives you a warning when you power up the radio that the sound is
Don't know about that.
We saw that with the CA, the alarms are off. And then RSSI
Think these guys will take any?
prevents you from turning the radio off if the receiver is connected, basically RSSI. The idea is that if you're flying the plane or flying the aircraft, and you accidentally, or maybe on purpose, push the
No.
button, you don't want it to power down, you'll give you a warning and it'll say,
Should I get that more died?
it says receiver still powered, and then it down. If you want the radio to only
Pass.
turn off when you press the power button, even if there's a button
Watch me need it very soon.
receiver connected to it, you can disable this warning and it'll just turn off. And not to beat a horse, but these options, just so you see, are right here. Haptic, alarms, and so forth. They're all right here. Continuing down the list, we have backlight. Now that controls what causes the backlight for the screen to turn on. For the black and white screen radio,
There you
it's
go.
not such a big deal because that screen doesn't draw a whole lot of power. For the color touchscreen radios, you definitely are going to want to change the settings. So that screen does.
So I'm pretty sure I got this.
Mode controls what causes the backlight to turn on. You have the option for buttons and sticks. Now I've got mine set to both so that if you're moving either of them, it sets the timer.
Here we go.
If I set that to on, backlight's on all the time, it never turns off. If I set that to control, that is the sticks, but not the buttons. And if I set that to keys, that's the buttons and the jog wheel, but not the sticks. And then off.
Nice. It's funny, I thought I was the only one having the problem with keeping my radio in frame over here when I have it in camera. But he's having the same issue, he has to go forward and backwards. It says it's the perfect form factor. Might not be for YouTubers.
Turns out that it doesn't matter because it's always getting overheard by that non.
How about?
The duration controls how long the backlight will stay on once it is triggered by either a key or a control, and the brightness controls how bright it is.
Right under the wing.
It's not right now. Alarm will cause the backlight to turn on when the alarm goes off, and contrast controls
There we go.
the screen. See if I adjust the contrast, the screen gets super lit. If I go the other direction, it gets super washed out. So just set that to whatever looks good. Here on the touchscreen radio, if I go to the backlight
Sweet
settings,
upgrade.
similar options to that keys control mode and on. But there is no option to
Trying to finish this line, I believe. And this line.
is on this type of screen. I don't know if this is an OLED or an LCD. I think it's an LCD. If we turn the backlight completely off, there's just nothing to see. Whereas on
Go
the
for
black and
this.
white screen radios, if the backlight is off, you can still see the ambient light. So they're not going to let you turn the backlight completely off, but they will let you turn the brightness way down. You see we have two settings here, one for the on brightness and one for the off brightness. So I can set that off brightness as low as possible. When I'm not using it, it just changes it to in 5 seconds.
I definitely forgot to set up my iPad this time.
That is
I just looked over here and realized there's nothing.
it's just like
Got my router over here, but no iPad.
it will let you turn it off, but not permanently. That's the thing. As soon as I move a stick, it turns back on. So here's how you might set this up to save battery. Critical mode is only, but not controls. So that while
So
I'm
let's see, can I summon my freighter?
the backlight doesn't turn on, but hey, I'm in the goggles anyway. What am I going to see? Right? So I can move the sticks and fly. The backlight is off, and I'm saving battery.
Squadron?
As soon as I land, I can move the jog wheel, and the screen will fly. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to set that to max so that it stays on all the time while I'm in
I think he's just here to help fight.
To stay on for 10 minutes after it gets turned on. You set that to some value that works for you. The splash screen option controls how long the radio displays a splash screen when it first powers up. Let me just turn this on. I'm just going to set it to like some obnoxious value, like 10 seconds.
I see a green dot, but I don't see him.
You'll see what I mean.
Is that him?
It's powering up.
Yep, there you go.
Display the splash screen.
That's my guy.
This radio is weird. If I hold down the power key, if I just do that, oh, it's just powered right up. Startup sound.
Cool.
Startup sound is the welcome to HDX. Splash screen is just not doing it's fine. I don't like the splash screen anyway. I want my radio to turn on when I turn my radio on. That's why
Do I have a dig site over here?
startup sound. Oh, it's the power on delay. That must be it. So the power on delay is how long
This is my goal.
the power button down before the radio powers on. And the idea there is that if it's pressed,
Let's try that again.
we don't want it powering on by accident. So the power on delay, the max is 3 seconds. See,
Did I miss something over here? Or is that just because the second dig site's here that's
it
marked?
doesn't power up until I hold it for 3 seconds. And there's my splash screen for 10 seconds. Okay, now I see how it works. So we've got these three
Very
options
confused.
sort of interact with each other.
Trying to get to the third dig.
Is I like to have the radio turn on as quickly as possible.
Oh,
As little
I'm here already. This is the third site.
So I will set the startup
Did I really just come to the third site and not do anything?
to 0. Don't do the splash screen. Power on.
That's probably what I did.
And never have to turn on.
Left off at a very strange point. Pretty much I came to this galaxy, or star system,
Here on the color touchscreen radio, we can find the same options. We've got the splash
then
screen. Let's just turn that right off.
I got one inventory upgrade
Second one, I do 0.
with the little money I had,
Not an option.
and ran to the
1 second.
space station. I think last time I was playing I may have gone out for a sandwich.
Startup sound, no thank you. And doesn't seem like there's a separate power on delay. Power off delay. What happens now?
I feel like I should move myself over.
How long you have to hold down the button for the radio to turn off. And we can set that to 0 seconds, and then literally as soon as I push
I
the
don't know.
button, it's off. Which I think is potentially a bad idea, especially if you disable that RSSI alarm, where it won't power the radio down if the aircraft is connected. Like if I go to alarms, check RSSI on shutdown, I might want to be on if I'm going to set a 0 second power off delay. It's up to you, I guess. I personally like there to be a small, like a 1 second power off delay. So you have to just bump the button. The radio doesn't just Next we come to some GPS related
Let's see what I landed on.
set the real-time clock in the radio automatic. I know this is something that I said was difficult.
It's not a great planet.
It was difficult to do in the past. It
Mass
looks like
low.
we baked the ability to do this into HTX, so now it's just automatic. And that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, this is in your time zone.
It's pretty cold.
Whatever GMT lines or GMT start, wherever you are in the world. You enable
You know what?
just RTB clock,
Excuse me.
and then
Let's go to sweep mode.
GPS telemetry. It will
Guess there's a frost crystal right there.
real-time clock from GPS. It certainly seems like what it's saying. Next up, we have
Seems roughly the right way.
so when you flash the radio,
Fossil bed, storm crystal.
the language input on the
Storm's clearing, great. So we're going to the fossil bed instead.
will say things like battery low, what HTX, and so forth. The way that HTX is set up,
Ooh, they got bad animals here.
different language packs on the SD card, and you can switch language by changing here in this menu function. That takes up a lot of space in the SD card, and it takes a lot of time every time you pick up the SD card to copy all these files, most of which you're not using.
Guess we're here.
So the way that the SD card is set up now is there's typically only one language pack on it.
Nice.
Let's actually just verify that. And we'll do that by backing out of the radio setup menu. Press the sys key and page one time to the SD card contents on the screen. This is showing us the contents of the SD card.
Mhm.
If I scroll down, I should go under sounds. And sure enough, you see there's just one key for English
What's up, exporter?
on this SD card. So we'll
Doesn't tone, okay.
from the menu and went down the language
Mm.
from English to Danish. There's no
They're looking for
Danish.
four-legged
Here,
evidence.
it just stopped working. So
Let's
you
do it.
have this match. If you put a Spanish language pack on
Mhm.
your SD card, you need to change this to Spanish as well. It should be set correctly by default, but if you ever find your languages aren't working, just set it manually. Next we have the units, which is metric or imperial. So you're looking at metric.
Hit every button besides the one that you need.
No
There we go.
units inside the radio are referred to.
Quadruped fossil display.
Units is pretty esoteric.
Exosuits 5 available. Alright.
If we look at PPM,
So
change the
let's do this one.
040.
Right, that line's finished.
All the way out to the main screen.
I wanted to finish this line.
Where it's showing me the channel.
It's 2,
See that it used to say 2,
3.
now it says 2.3. So
Frame rate's at 25 for some reason. This always gets weird.
tenth of precision here on our channel positions. If you care about the channel positions being just as precise as possible, you can
So
change
keep
that
this
option.
one
The
and this one.
default is to just show no decimal places, no digits after the decimal.
That one, that one, that one,
Control what happens
that one.
when you plug USB into the top USB port on the radio master base of the USB port.
Seems right.
The default option is to ask what mode the USB device should be in. It can be a game controller, it can be a test
Quadruped. What do I need?
Some radios that
25 here, alright.
the default is to just ask when you plug in what you select your menu, but you can. But if you had a radio, you only use that radio for playing simulator activities. You never use it with a real drone.
Supreme hyperdrive upgrade. Alright. Multi-tool inventory slots. Yeah, whatever. We'll take it.
Joystick, you never ask. You could, if you had one, you never use
What
the
just happened?
joystick, you could set it to always be SD card. Most people are just going to leave this at ask and select each
Yeah, okay, they still need it.
default channel order controls the default order that the 4 main controls
So
will
you're ferrite.
to new
I'm
models.
ferrite.
We have 4 controls. There's throttle, yaw or rudder, roll or aileron, and pitch or elevator. And depending on whether you're referring to the main axis or the control surface of the airplane. So that is commonly read out just as AETR, meaning that channel 1 is going to be aileron, channel 2 is going to be elevator, channel 3 is going to be throttle, and channel 4 is going to be rudder. What you want to do is set this to the default beta flight channel order, or if you don't use beta flight, set it to the default channel order, whatever.
Nope, wrong buttons.
You're using.
Alright, let's do the quadruped display.
Automatically have that order set up. You want to be aware
Make whatever bozo quadruped we can make. I don't have any hind legs, that's great.
So if you have a bunch of existing models,
Don't have a tail, that's
we
great.
haven't talked about what models are yet, so we kind of have to get ahead of ourselves. There's just no way to get into this without sometimes getting ahead of ourselves. If you have existing models and you change
Is that just 'cause my ship is not here?
about the existing models. You should also know that it is possible to change this after you create the model. If you decide you want a different channel order, you certainly can. This just
Really?
affects when you create new models what the default channel order is going to be. The rotary encoder mode controls.
So I have to run back to my stupid ship just to charge it.
Right is up and down, or down and up, or whether left and right is left and right, or left and left. Most people are happy with the default, but if you're unhappy with the default, you can invert it. You can invert just the vertical axis. You can invert just the horizontal.
Alright, flying, flying, flying.
The modes
Falling, falling, and then flying.
controls are mapped to which axis is in. Most people are going to fly in what's called mode 2, and in mode 2,
Oh no.
throttle is on the left
Am I
stick,
gonna get
yaw
snapped?
on the left stick, and pitch on the right stick.
Oh, gassy pod. You can grab it without getting snapped? Ah, you get snapped.
Some people fly mode 1, in which I don't remember the setting, but you can make that change here and change from to mode 1, and now we've got rudder on the left, elevator on the left, and throttle and aileron on the right. There are also 2 more modes. Mode 3, which is used by some people.
Launch auto charge. Obviously, I need that.
Consoles, and then they feel like
Solar mirror,
quadcopter feel
wiring room,
FPS
5 antimatter.
shooter game. And then mode 4, and I don't even know who uses mode 4. I encourage everybody to use mode 2 because that's what most people use. If you set your quads to mode 3 because it works for you, and then you go to a flight event, somebody's like, hey, do you want to fly my drone? And you're like, hey, can you help me fix my drone? They're not going to be able to fly it because the mode's all changed. So I really encourage everybody to learn mode 2. If you've got an instructor who's teaching you and they fly mode 1, okay. And if you just absolutely cannot make mode 2 work for your brain, then okay, do something different. Finally, we've got the enable features section, and this lets us turn off certain features of the radio. It doesn't actually make them disappear.
So I still need to get limbs, rib cages, etc.
To see them and constantly have to page through the menu. We can see here we've got the option to turn off functions and the trainer. These are things that we will talk about more as we go through the setup radio and understand what some of these are, but I want you to see that we have the option here to turn these tabs off. And if you are like, well, I never use
Oh, I guess I'm going there.
well, you can turn it off there. Okay? So one thing I do want to call your attention to is the building setup screen. There's a special screen that seems to be set up for helicopters. And I think most
I might just need to do the Faraday thing again.
don't fly collectively.
And then find another skull,
And we'll want to
unfortunately. So I got lost.
And once again, do have all of this stuff in the color touchscreen radio as well. Features right here.
That's a bad animal.
It's just now that's almost everything that's in the radio setup menu. But there is one thing that's in the menu of the color touchscreen radio that's not in the black and white radio, and that is this
Okay.
model option. The reason for that is that model management on the color touchscreen radio has the ability to sort and filter in a way that it doesn't on the black and white screen radio. And we'll talk about that option in the next video when we talk about making new models and feature options. I'll see you in that one.
There's a lot of bones here.
Description and card on screen to the full playlist with all of these videos. Bookmark that playlist, work your way through. A lot of them. And we're waiting on the algorithm to surface some.
Let's tag that for now.
See that?
What is that? Oh no.
My series on HTX, the software that is almost certainly running on your RC controller. And in this video, we're going to break down what is
There's more here, right?
like
There's...
the fundamental job of your RC controller. And that is to take movements of physical controls like sticks and switches and knobs and map them to outputs on your receiver. And if that sounds simple, well, you can still feel that way at the end of the video. Now, before we get into that content, you should know this video is
Right on, right on.
where I go through a whole bunch of information about HTX, the operating system that runs on our radio, and trying to teach people
Okay.
more about a lot of
Two more.
basics of using it just to get by on a day-to-day basis. They don't know, like,
So far, so good.
like what do they do? You get the radio
Ooh.
to do what you really want it to. That's what this video series is
Somebody's starship is up here. That's funny.
I want to invite you after you finish this video to check out that playlist. It's got a whole bunch of information about it today. You'll be a whole lot smarter about how to use it. That's linked in the video description below when you get to the end. At its heart, what your receiver is doing is extremely simple. It's easy to look at all of the menus and settings that
Right on, right on.
has.
Let's do a scan.
And what it's doing is incredibly complicated. And in a way, what it's doing can be complicated.
Ooh, okay, I gotta kill that dude. That's not good.
Very, very simple. And I want you to understand the simplicity so that then as we build up to the complexity, you've got that foundation to work with. So start with the idea that there are physical controls on the radio, like the sticks, the things you go
These guys.
right. We've got switches here that can be in 1 of 2 positions or 1 of 3 positions, or we've got these knobs, they can be
So hard to reload.
right. We've got a whole bunch of physical controls. And
Because I don't have a lot of ammo, apparently.
in some state or position. And basically what the radio
Whatever.
wants to do is communicate to the aircraft, or ground but communicate to the aircraft the state of those physical controls.
Disturb the eye. Okay.
Throttle up, the aircraft knows that I'm raising the throttle.
Not looking to disturb eyes.
Switch.
Just looking to get out of here.
The way that the radio does that is mapping those controls to channels. So if I'm on the main screen and I just press the page
An ion battery and that guy.
list of the channels that the radio is outputting, press 789 and so forth, and I can see
Starship is over there. Wait a second.
before as I raise the throttle, one of the channels goes out.
There we go.
State of control. So if I click the arm switch, you can see that channel is high, low. And if you look inside the you can see those channels being represented here. And again, as I flip that switch, that channel goes high and low. As I raise the throttle goes up and down. And I want you to understand that at its heart, all the control
Oh no.
is transmitting these channel values. For Express ELRS, there are 12 channels.
Why?
Particular flight mode,
I don't have enough ammo to fight you guys right now.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's it. That's all we've got. Everything
See?
we want to communicate to the flight controller needs to be communicated to these channels. So like, for example, you can imagine a scenario where there is an arm command. And digitally,
Get out of here, bro.
that is sent to the flight controller that says, I want you to arm now. But that's not how they do it.
They'll never find me.
Do it that way on the floor. The whole thing
I can't find me either now. Where'd I go?
But also, if we were to make
Just hit space and hope for the best.
locked in,
There you go.
everybody would have to agree to use that exact same protocol. We actually see that happening in larger aircraft running RJ.
Yeah. Okay, so I need ammo.
They use a protocol called Mavlink, and it is this serial protocol that's used to communicate to the flight controller. And all the flight controllers use Mavlink.
And what is that?
Mavlink just tells the flight controller,
Deployed
"On,
navigation marker.
disarm, return to home."
There we go, it's gone.
All this stuff. But that's not how it works with the type of flight controllers that are commonly used on FPV drones. We just have these channels, and the channels can be anywhere from all the way up to all the way down, 0 to 100, minus 100 to plus 100 if you're doing it that way. Or we can see.
Let's see, where's the target site now?
Representing the channels as going from a value of
There we
1,000
go.
to 2,000. Sadly, there are like 4 different ways of actually representing the channel value itself. The point is that the channel goes from some low value to some high value. That's it. We just have to figure out and define and interpret that. Absolutely. So the most basic thing that we have to do when we set up our controller is to tell the controller which physical controls are going to be mapped to which electrical channel. And the place that we do that is in the mixes screen. So if I press the model key on my radio and then page, I will get to mixes. That is the screen where we create that map.
Alright, alright.
Did all of the mixes.
Somebody's got a car.
And if I start moving the controls, nothing happens. Literally, none of my switches, none of my sticks, everything is just locked out here in the flight controller. Now, in theory, it doesn't matter which physical control you put on which channel. The channels aren't special. But there are some conventions, and there are usually good reasons to follow the conventions. And one of the conventions is that the first 4 channels, channels 1, 2, 3, and 4, are going to be your main 4 control channels. Pitch, roll, yaw, and throttle. The exact order that they come
Interesting, I still need a
is
tail.
not universal, but you can see that Beta Flight expects them to come in channel order A, E, T, R. And if we look at the letters over here, we can see that channel 1 is roll, channel 2 is pitch, channel 3 is yaw, and channel 4
That's tail, right?
so for convenience, we would want to set Beta Flight up to be that exact same way. There are other conventions that you may run into. For example, Express LRS wants Arc channel to always be channel 5, and there's a reason internal to Express LRS why it prefers to be that way, and you want to learn about these conventions as you go.
Right
But in
on.
general, there's nothing special about it. You could theoretically put your main control channel on the channel. Just probably shouldn't.
Nice, nice. Alright, let me pop into my ship. Stay away from the frost damage.
White screen radio first, and then we'll do it again on.
Go to the expedition screen and collect some
We're going to
rewards.
highlight channel 1.
Alright, I reported there.
Click the jog wheel, and that will create a new mix on channel 1.
Senior field agent, I got all the bones.
And we could do that, but we're going to skip that for now. Usually it's not worth the hassle in my opinion, although sometimes if you're
2, 3, 4, 5. Whatever.
We're going to go down and highlight source. And source
Oh, I think I reached the max.
is going to be input into this mix. Now we can see
So it
here
gave me
that
an extra,
source
yeah,
has
that's
been
the deal.
selected as aileron.
Aquajets unit.
The roll axis.
Sure.
The radio knows that the default channel order is AETR, and it has decided
Sure,
that
I'll
the
leave it
default
there for
on
now.
channel 1 you probably want the aileron. But notice that there is a little eye.
Surprised I still never got any dioxide.
telling us that this
Might be able to find some on this planet.
aileron input, which is coming from the Inputs tab, which we haven't talked about yet. And we're going to set that aside for now and come back to it later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click the jog wheel one time so
Let's
that
install this hyperdrive
I'm going
module.
to roll the jog wheel until I get
Hypersonic reality
where
destabilizer.
is it? Rudder, elevator, throttle, aileron. And do you see now that instead of the little
Okay.
eye, there is a little
Hyperdrive range, warp cell efficiency.
What that's telling us is
Supposedly
that now
making the trip a
channel
little bit
1 is
easier.
getting its input directly from the position.
They let me add another one.
of the stick. So, if
Okay.
I move the stick left and right, we can see that channel 1 is moving as I move that stick. Now let's do the same thing with the Jumper T15 and see how it's different on a color touchscreen radio. To get to the mixes, I'm going to press the model key, and that is going to be this menu key here. That will take me to model setup, and then I can hit page or tap to get
Softened barrel, eh?
the mixes screen. And again, I've
Seems like an ingredient to me.
so the only thing we've got here is that aileron mix that I previously set up. One of the things you're going to see that's different on the color touchscreen radios is that it doesn't show all the channels by default. It only shows the channels that currently
Right
have
on.
LRS assigned to them. So here we've got channel 1 and nothing else. What I can do is I can either tap or highlight here on the plus to add a new mix and select what channel I want that mix on. Let's put that on channel 2, and if we look at our Betaflight channel mapping, AE is channel 2, and that's going to be the pitch or elevator. So we'll do that on channel 2, and we have the same options here, name, etc. Naming on the color touchscreen radios.
Were these the things that sold? Or the lattice start crystals?
Literally tap on the keyboard. But we're going to go ahead and skip that. I don't think we need to do that now. And we can pick a source. And again, it's a little easier here because the menu pops up. We don't just have to scroll through a menu that we can see the whole menu like we would like originally radio.
Canon units, compressor units, and then night alrights.
There are categories. So here are the inputs.
So far, so good.
Here are the potentiometers. Here are the other things. We can actually just filter based on certain things that we might want to use.
Compressor units.
And what I want is the physical input. Let's just go to all.
Is that for the plasma launcher?
Let's look for that stick. Here's the rudder. Here's the
For the neutron cannon, I don't use that.
Now we have created an input based on the elevator stick, and that is going to be mapped to channel 2.
Oh,
Notice also
I guess it's here to use.
radio. As I'm setting up the mix,
Let's try it.
you can see here the physical input and the output of the channel, and that's pretty cool. You can see here that the input and the output are directly tracking each other, but that's not always going to be true. We could do things to change. Well, we'll talk about that going forward, but right now we have the ability to monitor that as we're going and just check that it's working as expected, whereas in the black and white screen radio we don't have that. If we drop back out to the main mixes screen, we also see the option here to show mixer monitors. If I turn that on each channel, it will show the current output of the channel, which can be helpful when I'm making more complicated mixes to verify that they're doing what they should do.
Let's do a quick scan, see what's around here.
Channels 1, 2, 3.
Organic structure,
Again, notice that there is the
dioxide.
stick icon to the left of the control.
Alright.
Taking the readout directly from the stick position,
Human.
not going through the input
Vigilant
screen.
stone, eh?
We haven't talked about the input screen yet, so set that aside.
Dioxide.
We also need to set up switches like arm
Further dioxide.
Doing that is basically the same.
Closer dioxide. Closer dioxide. Okay.
Be on aux 1 or channel 5. By the way, the 4 main control channels are 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then there is a convention whereby channel 5 is referred to as the first auxiliary channel. This is not a main control channel. So channel 5 is aux 1, channel 6
Cool.
is aux 2, and so on. It's kind of confusing. We just say channel 6. Here we refer to aux 1, which is the channel 5. Basically just subtract 4. Let's go ahead and add an arming switch.
So I guess this is the carbon thing.
And the first thing we need to do is we need to
Geology cannon.
switches do I want to be my arming switch? And there are conventions for that, but it's your controller, it's your muscle memory, so you just need to decide what's going to work. I will almost always have the leftmost two-position switch be my arm, and I'll flip it with my left hand. That's going to be
Seems to be what I need right here. Okay.
add a new mix on channel 5
We'll grab these as well.
to source.
Always use a little bit of sodium.
And while I'm in this selection option, you don't need to scroll through and find the switch in the menu.
That's not
All I need
crates.
to do is flip the switch, and when I flip the switch, you will see it automatically highlights that switch
GRRR.
selected. And that carries through almost everywhere in each game. So whenever you need to input a switch or control, just flip the switch. There are things that are only accessible by digging through a menu. Let's flip it down. So, right there, and now the SA is the source for this mix. If I flip that switch, you can see that the channel is going. I hope you're learning a lot in this video series. If you are, would you please consider joining
Thermal protection.
Patreon is a website where you subscribe to the minimum
I have not joined Bart Bull's Patreon yet, but I am
access to my Discord server, but most
unemployed as hell.
really,
So once I fix that, I will fix other things.
free. I don't charge you anything. I'll put it behind a paywall. And I just hope that eventually you'll come to a point where you'll go, okay, I feel like giving something back. If today's that day, there's a link in the video description below to my Patreon. I'd love to have you as a supporter at whatever level you think is fair for the amount of value you get out of my content. If that's $2 a month, great. $10 a month, better. Subscribe at whatever level you feel like. Links in the video. So to recap what we learned in this There are physical controls in the radio, switches, knobs, gimbals, etc. They operate along a single axis, left to right, up to down, switch flipped up, single axis. And the mixer screen in the radio is what maps those physical controls to a logical channel that comes out the receiver and then goes either to a flight controller or servo, if it's a ground vehicle or a speaker. So basically all the radio is doing is taking the physical controls and to a channel.
Alright, so that's the geology cannon.
And it gets more complicated than that.
Quite underwhelming.
In a lot of cases, especially if it's like multi-roads, it does. That's it. Because the flight controller is going to do all the heavy lifting of manipulating those signals and deciding what to do about it, and the radio just needs to pass the signals through. Well, we'll learn about some more complicated examples in a future video because the video is roads.
Nice.
I've got a link in the video description below to the full playlist where you can check out the next video, and I'll put a card on the screen as well if you can see cards about what you're watching. So you can go to that playlist and see this. Welcome back to a series of videos about EdgeTX, the operating system that is probably running on your radio right now. In the previous video, we showed how you could map a physical control to a logical channel using the mixes screen on your radio. That's simply passing those physical controls directly through the mixes screen to the receiver isn't always what we want to do. Today, we're going to dive into some of the ways to manipulate that information before it gets to the receiver. And before we get into that concept, you should know that this video is part of a series where I go through a whole bunch of information about EdgeTX, the operating system that runs on our radio, and try and teach people more about it. A lot of people know the basics of using it, just enough to get money,
blizzard.
but they don't know
That means a couple of storm crystals.
what it is,
Big money.
and how you get the radio to do what you really want it to. That's
This is just a necessary resource of dioxide.
I want to invite you to this video to check out that playlist. There's a whole bunch of information about EDX and make you a whole lot smarter about how to use your radio. That's linked in the video description.
I might deplete this again. The rate I'm going.
It doesn't seem like the right way to teach this is just to dive into menu options.
Nope, that's a storm.
I don't think they're going to make sense if I do it that way. So instead, we're going to start with preference, like a useful thing you might want to
Alright, let me clear up this little tiny bit.
use to explain.
Do a quick scan.
What we're going to do is what's called dual rates. So here we are in the flight controller's rate profile.
It's pretty far.
Screen, and we can see
Storm crystal, storm crystal.
red marker.
144.
Position that the flight controller
140. Oh, really?
Flight that stick all the way to 670 degrees per second of rotation.
Is it underneath me? Interesting.
Stick. And the idea that some people come up with is, well, sometimes
Oops.
people want high rates for fast flips and rolls, and sometimes
19, 12.
for very slow, precise movements.
Oh, there's one.
Data flight does have a way
There's two.
to set up different rates with rate profiles here.
One right here.
Most of the time, you would set this up in the flight plan. But let's imagine that we're doing this with an aircraft where we don't have the
214.
ability to do it in the
It's
flight
not
control,
bad.
or for some other reason, it's not convenient for us to do it in the flight control. How would we do dual
305.
rates, fast rates and slow rates, if we wanted to do it here? The first thing I want to show you is that here in the mixer screen, I can have multiple mixer lines per channel. So right now, I have this aileron on channel 1, rudder,
Get a couple of more of these stormies. Ooh,
and I do that
really
by
blind around here.
pressing the jog wheel and doing insert before or insert after. Let me just make this simple. I'm going to choose the source for this mixer line and click once to make it
Oh, I'm dying.
and I'm going to turn this knob here, and that knob is here and sound. And if I go back to the receiver tab here in the data button, you can see that that knob is in fact being added, literally added. If I
How is it below me?
then the aileron channel works as expected. But if I tweak that knob just a little bit, you see it is now adjusting the value of the channel. If I turn the knob all the way to one side, the channel goes from 4
There we go.
all the way the other way, the channel goes to
Cool.
so we're literally adding the value of these two controls together. Now, when would you want to do that?
There's one not too far away.
Working towards it, I just want you to understand the concept.
Is there one right above me?
Look right here, we
4
can see
units.
plus equals, indicating that this mixer line is being added to the mixer line before it.
bother.
Second aileron mixer line. So long press and copy, scroll down once, and here, and now two aileron lines being added together.
Oh boy.
This is going to double output.
Ooh. There it is. Nice. That looks like it's glowing. Can I grab that? Abandoned fragments.
What we want to do is this. I'm going to take that second mixer line, long press, and I'm going to go down
Oh no, we've got an animal.
to multiplex option. And the multiplex option is what controls how the mixer lines on a single channel. What happens is add, which means they're connected together. But I can change that. What that
Which way is my ship?
full line is together. So the last
That way?
will replace the one that came before it. Just completely replace its value. So if I go and change
That doesn't look too bad.
from aileron to potentiometer again, you can see that now that potentiometer knob is completely replacing the aileron stick. If I move the aileron stick, it has no effect whatsoever on the whole channels. Only the knob is affected.
Nice.
Which is silly, pointless, right?
Next.
Rid of the one before. So what we need to do
It's kind of far.
is we need the ability to tell the controller which one of these mixer lines we want to be active at the time to switch between them. So I've gone back and I've edited that second line. So now there's two aileron lines, right? Potentiometer knob is gone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the first line, long press, and edit. Scroll
Ooh, nice. 3 of them.
and the switch parameter, a lot of people mistakenly use the switch parameter to sort of mix, but it's mixed switch. They want to set their box switch, the switch. That is not the switch parameter sensitive. As you learned in the previous video, if you want to set up a mixer line based on a switch, you put the switch as the source. That's how it works. But the switch parameter
200 units for the... Ooh, okay.
the mixer
There's a fault freighter right there.
based on a switch position. So for example, I'm going to highlight the switch parameter.
And it looks like the storm might be going away soon.
Switch here into the middle position. If I switch SB in the middle position as the thing that will make this position light. It can be down, or it can be up, or it can be
Right on.
I'll put that in the up position. SB up is going to be what causes
100. This one's first then.
jog wheel. We can see that SB up is bold, and now it is not bold, indicating that it is not active this time. Back out one by pressing return key, and then we can also see here that we've got SB up here, indicating on the main screen.
Okay, QQ.
Only become active when we switch SB up. We're going to scroll down to the second aileron line, long press and edit. Go to the switch.
Let's get an exit.
For this one, we're going to put SB in the middle position. Now, what I want you to see is that by moving switch SB up, middle, down, up, middle,
Oh,
down,
nice.
we can cause these mixer lines to become active and inactive. Switch SB is up, the first mixer line becomes active.
QQ.
When it's in the middle position, the second mixer
Getting out of there.
and when it's down,
What's the next one?
may or may not be what we want, but
QQ.
second. So now I've got the ability to select between these two mixer lines, and almost to the
Oh, very nice.
that we want.
20, just do it. Alright.
Make the second
Finally kicked in.
have slower rates. That brings us to the weight parameter. So I'm going to highlight that second mixer line, edit, and I'm going to go to weight, and I'm going to
There's QQ here.
see what happens. I'm going to hold the roll
QQ.
all the way to
Smacking through steel.
the channel is all the way
Carpet
up to
pod.
and then I'm going to begin reducing.
Nice.
And I want you to see that as
None of these cargo pods have any extra stuff to grab.
So
They're all just like ready to go.
50%. Now the weight is at 50. Now the channel is only halfway deflected between the midpoint and the end. We'll go from midpoint of 1500 to about 1250, about halfway. And likewise, if I deflect the stick to the right, we'll go up to about 1750, about halfway between the midpoint and the end point. So when you adjust the weight, I want you to think about pulling the end
What?
in towards the middle or pushing the end points out away from the middle. As you might expect, if I set the weight all the way at 0, if that weight all the way down to 0, Then
Where's this damage channel? It says it right there.
just locked out.
Is it lower? There it is.
One, so nothing. So let's
Nice.
wait to 75.
Is this one? Yes, it is.
This mixer line is active. We will not be able to go to full deflection and will not
Okay.
get the full rate.
There's a wall.
If we go to hit tuning tab, rate profile setting, we'll see
There's a lot of wall.
that we are not going to full deflection. We're only going to 400 degrees per second.
Some steel up here.
Flip the switch into the up position. Now we're going to full deflection. And we're going 670 degrees.
Great.
So by flipping that switch, by having different weights on each of these mixer lines,
Let's play it
flip that
smart.
switch to choose which rate that we want. Now, in order to really have dual rates, we would need to also do this for the yaw and the pitch axis, which would be exactly the same process, and I'm not going to make you sit here doing it. But I want you to see the basic process
Oh boy.
for setting up multiple mixer lines on a single channel and then using a switch to switch between. That is how you set that up. And that's something that does come up at this time. Now there is a little bit of a problem here, and that is that
Yes, I'm out of there.
all the way down. None
Down
of
the
the
hole.
mixer lines are active, and the roll channel is completely locked down. And I probably wouldn't like that. So here's how I could work around it. Well, one way I could do that is I could just copy one of these mixer lines. Copy, put it here, and then edit it, and go down to the switch, and look at the channel for the switch down. Okay?
I think this should be the last one.
Reposition switch, probably the safest thing to do is to define a mixer line for all three of the positions, so you have explicitly defined the behavior that you want for each of those positions. So in this case, we would have 75% rates for down and mid, and then 100% rates for up. I could make that however I felt like I wanted.
Looks like there's another one.
It's a little more risky because it leaves open potential for things to not go how you might intend them. Because I could have two mixer lines, and the first one,
Okay.
the first one does not have a switch parameter. Okay, switch parameter is zeroed out. And then the way it's going to work is that as long as switch SB is not in the middle position,
Boom.
the second mixer line is disabled, and therefore the first mixer line is the only one.
Patching. Let's trade log. Do you have anything cool for me? Nope.
Now that second mixer line comes to
Viking
life,
remnants.
replace the first one.
Flesh and steel. Yada yada. Probably.
Position. Once
Probably
again,
12, 12, 12.
the mixer line disables itself, and the first one is the
Cool.
So you could have the second one selectively override the first one based on the switch position. Would be another way to do it. Now we've been doing this demonstration in the black and white screen radio, and if you have a touch
Third cache. I don't think that's what I need.
it's going to look like, and I want to do
For cargo drops, if anything. But
touch screen.
got all the ones I really need.
Black and white screens will have to sort of extrapolate. So here on the radio, I am going to, well, I can press the model setup button and then go to the screen if I want to, or I could just tap on the screen,
Nice.
setting, tap right there, it's fine. I can do those same things here. I can highlight channel 1, long press,
Storm is incoming, but not quite here yet.
press,
There it is. Alright. I need more storm crystals on the way to my ship.
then we got the second one, and then I can highlight that and delete it, and I can go in and see here we've got the weight parameter, and where is the
330 away.
parameter? That is going to be here in the gear menu. Put
330
it,
away. Also bad.
it's right here.
He's a little bit too far.
Flex replace, and it's exactly like you saw there.
Right there.
A whole bunch of other parameters as well. Maybe not today yet, can't do all of these, but that's how you can set that up.
It's definitely worth grabbing the storm crystal and just running to my ship, then calling it over here.
That if you wanted to set up dual rates, you shouldn't set it up in the mixer screen. You should set it up in the input screen. So let's introduce the idea of the input screen, which is the one before the mixer screen. And at first glance, the input screen looks a lot like the mixer screen. Like we've got aileron, elevated, throttle, rudder. But here's what you need to know. The mixer screen's main job, it's really not its only job, but its main job is to assign an output to a channel. The
Is it below me?
is where the channel 1 gets the output from the aileron.
Oops.
Channel 2 gets the output from the rudder. It is the link
Definitely was below me.
channels and whatever is coming into those channels. The The input screen is a way that we can manipulate or massage those values before they get to the mixer. So I want you to think about, we've got the physical control, which is a switch, or a knob, or a gimbal, joystick, whatever. That physical control is feeding its value into the input screen.
Yes.
The input screen is potentially shaping or manipulating that value before it's fed to the mixer screen. And the mixer screen outputs it onto a chip.
Oh, not bad.
Follow me there? There's actually
F
more to the
leaf.
flowchart.
Liftoff.
Now the advantage of the input screen is, like, let's imagine that I had an input that I wanted to put on more than one channel. Let's say I want, I don't know what, go. Let's say I want the throttle channel to be output to multiple ESCs. I've got multiple ESCs on my ground vehicle.
Okay.
Drive all those motors, all on different channels. So I need the throttle to go out on channels 4, 5, 6, and 7. Well, I would go into the mixer screen and I would put the throttle on channels 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'll be fine. What if I also want to, like, shape the throttle output like I did with the blue ring? Do you see that I would then go into the mixer and I would need to have that same logic on channels 4, 5, 6, and 7? I lost count. How many motors I have. I would get complicated. Logic, the manipulating and shaping the throttle channel, I would need to have it 4 times. One for each of the motors and one for each of the channels.
How did I get out of here? How did I get in here?
Shape that input in one place, and then feed that shaped input into the mixer screen, and then map that out on whatever channels you want out. And it's a little bit confusing because some of the things that the input screen can do.
Storm's gone. I wouldn't have made it anyway. That's good.
Overlap. And it's just a question of sort of logically in your brain, where does it make the most sense to do this thing? But the main reason that the input screen is essential is if you're outputting the same output on multiple channels, you want all your shaping to be done on the input so that you don't have to do it in multiple
Well, where's the ship?
mixes.
Over there?
So
Okay, is that a hole?
shaping am I talking about? Here we've got an input. Aileron.
Yes, it is.
If I long press that aileron input and edit it, you can see here is the screen. And you see that the input has a
Perfect.
source. That source is the aileron stick. So what we've actually done
Touchy.
is taken the aileron stick, the physical control, we've edited input, and we can see here the actual little stick icon next to where it says AL aileron. And then if we go
Looks like I got 11.
deleted all the old mixes so we can get back to the default. If we add a new mix on channel 1, you can see that the default is not the physical stick, but the input. So this little icon to the left of AL here, that means it is the aileron input, not
Alright, everything seems good enough.
side by side. So here at the top is the aileron input, and here at the bottom is the aileron
But to not excited that, why not?
screen. Most of
What
the
did I
time
need here? Chromatic metal? Really?
input, that's just the way it's done.
Do I have any copper?
It doesn't have to be done that way. Back to the input screen. We're going to edit that aileron
I don't
input.
see any.
We do. Well, you can see here that one of the things we can do is we can manipulate the weight. And the weight manipulation here is exactly like the weight of the mixes that I showed you before. We could set that weight to 75%.
Alright. Let's keep it going.
And now,
Catch a bonefish.
look in beta flight. It's going to work. Exactly like our horn. What's going on here? Oh, it's because the wrong goddamn radio is turned. So if I deflect the stick, then I'm going to get 75% stick travel instead of 100%, just like I previously set up with the mixers. And I can go here in the inputs, and I can long press and copy that line, long press, and paste that line. And then I can have a second line, which I give
Toxic worlds.
Notice sometimes I like to
Or deep water at night. Let's see what planets we have.
I've just been doing it for a long time. Maybe it's just habit, but I find the job a little bit easier sometimes. Now, one difference
That's
between
an icy ruins. Probably not there.
is that
Poisonous
input
planet.
screen does not
Probably
have
means toxic.
the multiple lines.
Barren, maybe not there.
Input screen like I do.
Barren, no.
Only one of those lines is ever going to pass through to the mixer screen. And
Blighted
the
moon.
first one, and then it works its way down the
Or
list.
bountiful
The first one,
planets.
for some reason, is not valid. Why would the first one not be valid? Well, if I go in and edit, I can see that there is a switch parameter here, just like there was in the mixers. So if I take that switch parameter and I make this line be active when it's
So Ligart Prime, probably.
and I make this line be active when switch SC is in the middle position, then I've got the ability to switch
Bounce. That's the bounce ball. Okay.
With switch. However, there is no adding logic like there was for Mixer. Just to reiterate, it's always replacing
Nope.
logic. And it's always the first line from the top that is allowed to be active. That was
We are prime.
this video series. If
That's
you
the
are,
poisonous one.
consider joining my Patreon.
I don't think that was on, right?
Website where you subscribe.
Oscillatory Trial was on it.
Entry fee is $2
Nope.
a month, and you get some rewards, like get access to my Discord server. But
Nope, that was like our prime I was looking at.
that you're giving something back. I make this content for free. I put it out there for free. I don't charge you anything. I don't want to find a paywall. Just hope that eventually you'll come to a point where you go, okay, I feel like giving something back. If today's that day, there's a link in the video description below to my Patreon. I'd love you to have you as a supporter.
Alright.
At whatever
I think I've skipped 2020, so at this point I might as well take myself a little break once I'm done with this next accomplishment.
better. You subscribe to whatever level you feel like, and you can raise or lower or cancel whatever you feel like that's the right thing for you to do. Links in the video description below. So what did we learn in this video? We saw that we can have multiple mixer lines, and those mixer lines can add together or they can replace each other based on a multiplex parameter. And we saw that we can change the weight of the mixer line to adjust endpoints of the channel, basically when we deflect the stick or switch how far in and out those channels go. And we use that to make a dual rate situation. We want to reiterate that in real life, I would recommend doing dual rates in a flight controller, not in the RC.
What's this little fishy guy I want to trade?
We also saw that the input screen feeds into the mixes screen.
Okay,
and
let's go.
that the input screen can be used to do some of the same thing that the mixes screen can do, but there are going to be times when it'll be more convenient in terms of the logical flow of the radio.
Gamma root, do I need it? Probably not. Should I get it?
Mixes screen, you just
1506, yeah, why not?
map into a channel and mixes instead of getting all leveled up by doing all
Is that really all this dude had, man?
There's a lot more here for us to learn and a lot more things to do. And of course, we're going to get into all of that in future videos in this series. Speaking of which, the playlist with all the videos in this series.
Crystal Flesh, I really don't need it.
See it, or link in the video description below, and I will see you.
Might need it later, so I gotta cook something up.
Previous videos in this series, I've said that the main job of your EdgeTX controller is to take the position of a physical control, like a stick, a switch, a knob, and to output the position of that physical control through to the receiver, which outputs into the flight controller or the servo. And there are three main
Let's get like 40,000 of these, hopefully.
shape that input before it gets to the receiver. The first one is the input
Cool.
screen,
Oh,
mixer screen. We talked about those at least a little bit in the previous videos in this series. In this video, we're going to take a look at the
Dirt.
main
Very little demand.
shapes the output of the controls to the receiver, the outputs screen. And before we get into that content, you should know this video is part of a series where I go through a whole bunch of information about
Scaly meat? Yeah, take it.
that runs on our radio to try and teach people more about it. A lot of people know the basics of using it just enough to get by on a day-to-day basis, but they don't know, like, through all these menus, like, what do they do? And how do you...
Yeah, I could sell the storm crystals here for just even out, or I could just sell one.
series is about. And there's a whole playlist. I want to invite you after you finish this video to check out that playlist. It's got a whole bunch of information.
Yeah, each storm crystal will fund an inventory slot at that point. It was good to get 10 of them.
Video description below. I'm going to start this video on a color screen radio, and to get to the output screen, I'm going to press the menu key, and then outputs is. I never remember what the
I need to fish on this planet.
page key. I'm going to look here until I get input. And the main thing that you need to know about the output mostly pertains to things you would do if you were using servos. Outputs is about shaping the position of the servo so that the endpoints and the center point are correct. And this is necessary because servos are a mechanical device. So you have a servo and you want the servo to be centered right here, for example, so that your wheels of your car are tracking straight instead of tracking off to the side, or so that your control surface on your airplane is flat and level instead of deflected down. But the center point of that servo may not be exactly right. The output screen is going to let us adjust the center point of the servo. Likewise, the servo is going to deflect
Dang it.
up and down.
Don't see water.
Or limits on how far you
Might be on the other side of the planet.
your control surface may only be able to go so let's imagine that the servo's job was to close a door or to retract a landing gear on an airplane. Well, at a certain point, the door is closed, or the door is open, or the landing gear is fully retracted, or the landing gear is fully open. And you don't want the
I wonder what that red spot is.
or keep pushing and trying to go past that point. So when working with servos, you need to adjust the center and the endpoints of the servo's travel.
Nope.
You could do that with the inputs and the mixer screen, but it would be very cumbersome. And it makes sense to take that specific function and remove it to a separate screen. The output
Lost World.
so that we can set the
Little Medusa.
of the servo in the output screen.
Nope,
and
nope,
then
nope.
forget about
Looking for the bonefish thing, if anywhere.
inputs in the mixer screen, we can just pretend that 0 to 100%, the full travel of the servo is whatever it needs to be, and trust that the output screen is taking care
Oh, yeah?
of limiting the endpoints in the center of the servo's travel. So if you're not working with servos, do you just need to skip this video? No, you still need to know a few of the things that are in here, and we will
Alright, time to fight.
hold all your knowledge. Let's take a look. We can see on the output screen that we have 3 channels. Working out.
Yellow, nice. Ooh. Just one? Bummer. Water? No water? No water. More pirates, yes. Is that a pirate? Tell me it is. Did he just run away? Ooh, I just flew past him. Ah, it's my guy, isn't it? Because it's green? Yeah. My guy came out to help me.